Whoa, what is that?
My name is Lady Callista of the House of Argonon, and I've come here to finally force you to review the game I'm featured in, The Last Story on the Nintendo Wii.
What? Oh yeah, I remember that game.
Back in 2012, you made a horrible video.
Oh, well, I still make those, so.
I mean, agreed, but let me finish. Anyways, you were brown-nosing Exceed in a cringe-inducing video, all because they brought the game to the West. Do you remember this?
Both of these games were able to be purchased due to the fact that you were able to bring this to America. Picked up my reserve. So as you can see for the last story I haven't started yet. I'm so backed up with games right now, and between everything else in life, it's just crazy, but I will be starting it at some point, and I really look forward to playing it.
Dude, I haven't played this game.
You've been so focused on showing people obscure action games, beat-em-ups, and all sorts of pish-posh that you've forgotten why you started this show.
You know what? You're right. Let's review this. This is the...
Wait!
What?
This is the last story on the Nintendo Wii.
Hey, that's my line.
Developed by Mistwalker Studios, AQ Interactive, and not so coincidentally directed by ex-Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, 2011's The Last Story on the Nintendo Wii is largely considered part of the Holy Trilogy Wii.
Wow.
You like that, huh?
No. Actually almost made me vomit in my mouth a little.
In the final years of Nintendo shovelware sonata known as the Nintendo Wii, the Big N was ready to extend the brand with the then unannounced Wii U console. But before the Wii could be put out to pasture, 3 brand new titles were out in Japan that gamers speculated weren't coming to Western shores. Enter Operation Rainfall, a dedicated group of fans that formed during the Wii's final years to plead with Nintendo to release the final 3 games to North American audiences. Thankfully, Nintendo listened. Well, sorta. See, Nintendo decided to localize the arguably biggest title of the bunch, Xenoblade Chronicles, which opened up the floodgates for fan-favorite publisher Xseed Games to step in and cover the other 2 titles, Pandora's Tower and today's game, The Last Story. Released stateside in 2012, action-based role-playing game fans could finally see what Sakaguchi's latest efforts had to offer. So the big question is, was it worth petitioning to have this game brought over? Our main hero throughout this journey is a man by the name of Zale and his band of mercenaries. He and his longtime friend and fellow dreamer Dagran want to become knights. They're joined by a ragtag group such as Lowell, the ladies' man.
Hey, Lowell.
It's true, you are the most beautiful woman I have ever laid eyes on. You've melted my battle-hardened heart. I feel like a new man.
Would you like to order a drink?
Just being near you fills me with light and magic and joy.
Yurik, the eye patch wearing youngin' with a mysterious past and plenty of daddy issues.
You don't know what kind of monsters might be out there. It's too dangerous to go alone.
You worry too much. I can handle myself.
Marania, the soft-spoken spiritual mage.
The Guardian taught me everything I know about magic and medicinal herbs.
Wow, I see.
But as the forest began to wither away, the Guardian became weaker and weaker. I did everything I could to try and stop it, but it wasn't enough. Just why is the land dying?
And everyone's favorite drunk, horny, blue ball-inducing gal pal, Seren.
Be nice to Seren, she's a wonderful girl.
Oh yeah?
Yes! Zale, have a few drinks with me, just for an hour or 7.
Same old Seren.
What, you think I'm drunk? Look, I'm as sober as whatever's normally sober. Anyway, get some alcohol in ya. Look, if you're not drinking, then I'll have to get another drink. Oh, Zale. While I was at the bar, you turned into a rather handsome chap. You've been running around all day. You must be all hot and sweaty.
Oh, well, yes.
What? Seren?
What? Is there a problem? Oh, you want to get in with us, don't you?
No! I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice, but...
What's
Wait,
the
that sounds
problem?
really
Get
bad.
in the bath
I
with
just
them.
mean, yes. I mean, no!
Oh, really? Still, you're a guy, right? I know how it is. You have a certain needs from time to time.
Seren.
But don't you worry. When you feel the urge, this is the place to sort yourself out. I know, everyone's embarrassed their first time. But once you get the hang of it, you'll be back for more.
I really don't think...
Oh, don't be such a scaredy cat. You'll never get any better if you don't practice. Go on, be a man and get stuck in. Here at the arena!
Arena?
Yeah! Nothing like a good old fight. Why? What did you think it was?
All right, point taken.
All joking aside, one of my favorite things about the last story is the characters. Though they sometimes hit a few of the traditional trope checkpoints in JRPGs, there's still plenty of room for surprises. The way the story unfolds is charming and refreshing thanks to extremely well-crafted voice acting by the entire European-led voice cast. Gone are the wispy, childlike voices of most anime-inspired JRPG journeys, and in its place we have believable adult voices and facial expressions to match the game's proper visual tone. You really feel the emotions and tear-jerking moments throughout the journey. Heck, I even teared up at the ending. Though the part that I did shed some tears at is a huge spoiler, so I guess you'll never know! Combat is handled in a simplistic style that is easy to learn, and while there are some issues I have with it, I enjoyed every single battle I fought in. The Last Story is an action RPG that takes inspiration from the first 2 games in the Ys series, as well as duck and cover action classics such as Winback or, more famously, Gears of War. Attacking enemies is done using the direction Zale is moved in. For example, when in combat, point the analog stick in the direction of the enemy to allow Zale to swing his weapon of choice, doing damage automatically. Along the way, he'll level up and get moves like Slash, which lets him perform a more powerful burst attack when hiding behind cover. And finally, this neat wall jump attack, which is triggered when pressing Zale towards a flat wall. When this is performed successfully, it lets you pick where you want to dive bomb enemies based on a somewhat limited range of where you can go. These are the core mechanics of fighting with Zale, though the gameplay does expand exponentially very early in the game thanks to Zale finding a strange glowing power called the Power of the Outsider that attaches itself to his arm. This magical ability is not only a major plot device throughout the game, but it also transforms the gameplay into something more resembling an RPG. A few quick things before I elaborate on the specific controls. I played with a Classic Controller Pro, so I wouldn't be able to tell you if the motion controls worked well with this game, but I'd recommend using a traditional controller setup if possible just to keep things simple. The beginning of the game has a multiplayer option, one which I was unable to explore. The multiplayer offers 2 different modes, a competitive one which pits your team against online opponents, or a co-op mode where you take on battles with another person. Supposedly, this allows you to acquire items to use during the main story arc, so it might be worth researching if you can get it working. By pressing the L button during the real-time battles, Zale activates the Power of the Outsider. Zale's got a few moves he can learn with this power, such as holding down L to do a burst knockback on certain enemies, or by walking near or over downed AI teammates to revive them within their range of given lives, which reset between battles. More on that in a bit. There's a tension bar that fills up below your player's health bar. This lets you know when you can trigger the combat mechanic for the entire party of up to 6 characters max. When the bar is full, pressing the up button on the D-pad triggers a ceasefire as you pick through your options. Initially, your team will have 3 options, which are mostly all different for each player aside from the retreat option. For more magical characters like Callista, Lowell, Uric, and Marania, you get 2 magic attacks that will either perform the action chosen or create a magic diffuse circle in the combat field.
Ooh, use me as an example.
Alright, take for example Callista's spells. Her left spell involves diffusion circles, which each cast member can provide. Using Zale's Gale attack will trigger the magic diffusion circles that your party has provided you, enabling the magic to be performed by those teammates. In Callista's case, she can enable something called Shining. Once the circle is placed on the playing area, Zale can use Gale against it, which makes him dash and slash it. This triggers Callista's magic to place a temporary defensive shield on all players. Her right option is Recover, which can also be diffused to restore health points or remove negative statuses like death. Each character eventually gets a 4th option, which can be triggered like a limit break in Final Fantasy thanks to a tension bar. By pressing the up button on the D-pad when seeing it light up, the chosen character can provide powerful physical, magical, or defensive attacks that range from mega attacks, to shields, to even reviving knocked out characters that have no lives. The combat in this game flows extremely well, allowing players to shift back and forth between the more traditional JRPG turn-based strategic elements of the diffuse magic circles and the physical action-based tactical combat, making for an engaging, rewarding experience with each battle.
Such powerful magic.
The game's story is broken down between 44 chapters in total. There's also a New Game Plus mode if you wanted to jump back in and try to get all the extra stuff that you may have missed the first time around. This is done through various fetch quests and hidden items. My problem with defining this game's story into chapters is that they sometimes don't notify the player of advancing, especially during longer play sessions. They also aren't always done in order, which can lead people like me who have slight OCD when it comes to proper progression. When I play an RPG, I want the story to unfold in the order that the developers laid out for the game. I don't mind non-linear, so long as I'm not risking missing certain character building events. I would get to a certain point where I could explore the massive town within Lazarus, only to find that there were some optional missions and things I couldn't find after a certain point because the story prevented it from happening. This is fairly normal JRPG fare, but there are plenty of "are you ready to proceed" moments, which kind of gives players a heads up that they might not be able to backtrack for a while. I mean, heck, even the last 10 or so chapters are pretty much a finale for the game, so abandoning side quests and secret exploration may be unnerving for some players.
Like, just don't tell me what the chapter numbers are and I'd be fine with this.
Mike had a serious problem with chapters not appearing properly. He voiced his concerns with Callista, who couldn't care less.
Why is there an announcer just restating the obvious for stuff that already happened? And hey, wait a minute.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, this was one of the most annoying parts of this game when it came to story narrative. So there's an age-old saying in creative writing where you're supposed to show, not tell. However, the last story likes to give you narrative after scenes that are the equivalent of either, yeah, no duh, or we already saw this happen, why is it being narrated? I get that the game is trying to go for this storybook style regarding the chapters, but after you read a chapter in a book, the book doesn't generally summarize what you just read in a final paragraph at the end of each chapter. Zale meets a woman named Lisa, who turns out to be a princess named Callista. She's running away because she's being forced to marry a snarky, spineless worm of a man named Lord Gerald in a planned marriage. That is, until Zale steps into the picture. The people of Lazarus Island, a traveling fortress commanded by Callista's uncle, Count Arganin of the Arganin family, are at war with a group of beings known as the Garak, and their leader, Zangarak, who wants to use Callista's Arganian blood to take over the power of the outsider. When Callista isn't in your party, she's either rescuing Zale from prison or being kidnapped by Zangarak. However, at least this time the trope has some sort of narrative cognizance.
Wait, why is Ganon in this game? And why is he looking super jacked?
No, that's Zangarak, leader of the Gorak.
Yeah, well, he looks like swole Ganon, as the kids these days put it.
And lo and behold, Mike tried to relate to younger generations with modern-day slang. Despite this, it just makes him look way older than he already is.
Stop that!
You know, I kinda like this announcer guy.
There's a bit of metaphor at points of the game to real-world race differences, where both groups of races are seen as the good guys to their own people. It's a brilliant social commentary on the effects of war and how innocent people can get hurt. This narrative isn't snarky or overly political, but it does make a statement that I can get on board with. While Zale is very easy to control, I felt that his agility was sluggish at points, especially when there's just way too much on the screen. The choppy frame rate, especially when there are a lot of visual effects from magic shields or barriers, or when you're in large open arenas with more than a few enemies, tends to force Zale to a crawl at times. Most battles will start off with the ability to see around your team from above, which allows you to plan out strategies for taking out enemies. For example, you may have to provide cover for your team by taking out archers with your own bow attack. There's a lot of silliness that can transpire during the battles as well, like using the banana peel to make certain enemies slip. It's a cheap but worthwhile tactic that has its advantages during these tough fights. Walking around towns allows Zale to just get out and explore, but sometimes you just want to move from one section to another to get to where you need to be. Thankfully, you can transport automatically between sections in and outside of the island thanks to the sub-menu's map option. Just pick a place and go there. It's really that easy. There's also plenty of shops to visit, items to buy, and people to run into.
Hey! Oh, wow! It's that famous knight. He actually bumped into me.
There's this nerdy character, Horace, who you'll encounter in one of the side missions. He has a shop in town that he co-manages with his wife, who ends up going missing. After you rescue her, Horace's shop becomes available to visit. He can also decurse specific weapons for you, and late in the game, you have the power to summon him to level up your weapons and armor. It's weird though. He always seems to publicly boast about porking the kumquat with his wife.
Master Zale, thank you so much for all your help.
We really can't thank you enough for what you did.
Please, there's no need for all that. I'm just glad everything's all right.
I'll say, I tell you, every night since then...
Horace dear, I think that's quite enough, don't you?
The idea of me going pow and appearing here puts me on edge. Meredith and I were just about to... never mind.
I'm sorry, what?
You know, shaking the bacon, turtle doving, the rapscallion, smothered in cheese, blasting disasters, zonking the snarf, number 3 soft, egging her poodle, beaver adventures, mastering her universe, quivering cookies, putting your laurels in a silk bag, the Dolly Popka, smoothing her smoothie, feeding her aardvark, meeting the graveyard duck, feeding her bagels McJr.
Oh! Sex.
Really, of all the ones to know, that last one?
I mean, you didn't say one that actually exists up until then.
How does feeding her bagels McJr. equal going to Funky Town?
It just does.
Weapons and armor can actually be upgraded multiple times throughout the game, though I found it was easiest to just pick something stylish and manually modify it by either removing individual pieces of armor or finding dyes to change color. Some dyes even get rid of all the outfits. Hello, nurse! Graphics in the last story honestly range in quality. A lot of the colors tend to look really washed out and overly bright, almost like somebody turned the saturation and brightness way up. But the backgrounds are downright breathtaking at points. I found myself more impressed by those than anything. But art direction for the outfits and characters isn't over the top. Hey, at least there aren't zippers everywhere. And of course, no Mistwalker Studios and Final Fantasy alumni-based game would be complete without Nobuo Uematsu's stellar compositions. Here we have a stunning audio array of breathtaking tracks from Mr. Uematsu, which are some of his most memorable compositions since his late 90s Final Fantasy days. Just take a listen to a few of these tracks to see his diverse efforts. From classical hard-rocking boss themes, this soundtrack is worth hunting down for sure. The Last Story isn't a perfect game by any means, and its release on the Wii clearly shows the system's struggles. Between the frame rate drops, washed out visuals, awkward chapters, and weird announcers, that may steer some people away, but I encourage anyone owning a Wii or a Wii U to absolutely give this game a fair shot. It's still relatively inexpensive these days, and is well worth the investment of about 25 to 30 hours for a nice and short action-based JRPG. The memorable soundtrack, lovable cast of characters, gorgeous backdrops, and engaging combat wins me over personally, and I think it'll keep you coming back for more of The Last Story.
I am so glad that I finally got a chance to play this one. Thank you so much, Callista.
It's my pleasure.
Mike thanked Callista for convincing him to play the
Alright,
last
that's it.
story.
Where's he hiding? I'll give you something to narrate about.
Well, good night, folks.
Thank you to the following patrons. Your support means the world to me. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Make sure to stay subscribed to the channel and check out these videos enclosed below. As always, thanks for watching.